Hello and welcome to KG Graves, number 4, Wisconsin, where we will be visiting 5 cemeteries and looking at 9 graves. I would be most grateful if you would like, subscribe and hit the bell for more content like this. Thank you. Wisconsin is the 30th US state, also known as the Badger State, whose capital is Madison. I visited Wisconsin on 2 occasions. The first time was in August 2011, as I wanted to visit the grave of lespaul. However, when I arrived, I was disappointed to find the grave was cordoned off, as it was having what I thought was a new headstone. I then returned in August 2017 to find the finished product, and wow, was I amazed by what I saw, but more on that later. Okay, so let's get started. The first cemetery I visited was the Unity Chapel in Springgreen, which is a very small cemetery, mainly dedicated to the families of the Joneses and the Lloyd Wrights. Let's take a look at the cemetery. The first grave there is Anne Baxter. Anne was born on the 7th of May 1923 in Michigan City, Indiana. She is the granddaughter of the famous architect Lloyd Wright. At an early age she realized that she wanted to become an actress, and at the age of 10 she appeared on Broadway in Seen But Not Heard. She made her film debut in 1940 in 20 Mule Team. In 1946 she won both an Academy Award and Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress for her role in The Razor's Edge. Anne starred in many films, but her most famous role was for her part in the Cecil B. DeMille film The Ten Commandments in 1956. This won her a Laurel Award for Top Line Female Dramatic Performance. In 1960, Anne was awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame at 6741 Hollywood Boulevard. Throughout the 60s, she appeared in many TV programs, including What's My Line, Batman, and the Alfred Hitchcock Hour. In her personal life, she was married 3 times. Her first marriage was to John Hodiak on the 7th July 1946, and had a daughter Katrina born in 1951. In 1960, Anne married her second husband, Randolph Galt, and had 2 more daughters, Melissa and Marginal. Her third marriage was to David Klee in 1977, but this was a short marriage as David died from an unexpected illness. Anne had a stroke on the 4th of December 1985 while hailing a taxi on Madison Avenue in New York City. She remained on a life support machine for 8 days in New York's Lenox Hill Hospital until family members agreed that brain function had ceased. She died on the 12th of December at the age of 62. The second grave is that of Franklloydwright. Frank was born on the 8th of June 1867 in Richland Center. He had a deeply disturbing and unhappy childhood, and the family lived in poverty. His mother brought Frank some educational blocks called Froebel gifts, which were made from maple wood, when he was 9 years old, which he used to play with. In his autobiography, he states these as influencing his approach to his designs due to the various geometric shapes. Frank was an architect, designing over 1,000 structures in a 70-year career. He is responsible for the Talison's Fellowship, where he trained and educated hundreds of apprentices. He studied civil engineering at the University of Wisconsin in 1886 at the age of 19. As part of his work, he designed offices, churches, schools, skyscrapers, hotels, museums, and worked on other commercial projects. He also designed interior elements, including leaded glass windows, floors, furniture, and even tableware. In 1991, he was recognized by the American Institute of Architects as the greatest American architect of all time. Frank's personal life hit the headlines on several occasions. In 1903, he became enamored with a neighbour's wife, Mama Cheney, and although they were both married, fled to Europe, leaving their spouses and children behind. He then returned to America in October 1910, where he persuaded his mother to buy him some land in springgreen so he could build a new house, which he would call Tellysin, from Welsh mythology meaning the truth against the world. On the 15th of August 1914, while Frank was working in Chicago, a servant, Julian Carlton, set fire to the living quarters of Tellysin and then murdered 7 people with an axe as the fire burned. The dead actually included Mama, her 2 children, John and Martha Cheney, and various servants and staff. 2 people survived the attack, one of whom, William Weston, helped to put the fire out. Carlton, who started the fire, swallowed hydrochloric acid immediately following the attack to try to kill himself. He was nearly lynched on the spot, but was taken to the Dodgeville jail. He died from starvation 7 weeks after the attack, despite medical intervention. In 1922, Kitty Wright, Frank's wife, finally granted him a divorce. Under the terms of the divorce, Frank was required to wait 1 year before he could marry his then mistress, Maud Miriam Noel. In 1923, his mother Anne died. Frank then married Miriam Noel in November 1923, but her addiction to morphine led to the failure of the marriage in less than 1 year. In 1924, after the separation, but while still married, he met Olga Olgivana Lazarevich Hinzenberg. They moved in together at Tellysin in 1925. On April 20th, 1925, another fire destroyed the bungalow at Tellysin. Crossed wires from a newly installed telephone system were deemed to be responsible for the blaze, which destroyed a collection of Japanese prints that were estimated to be worth between $250,000 and $500,000. Frank rebuilt the living quarters, naming the home Tellysin 3. Olga became pregnant. Their daughter Ivana was born on the 2nd of December 1925. In 1926, Olga's ex-husband, Vladimir Hinzenberg, sought custody of his daughter Svetlana. In October 26, Frank and Olga were accused of violating the Mann Act and arrested in Tonka Bay, Minnesota. The charges were later dropped. Frank and Miriam Noel's divorce was finalized in 1927. Frank and Olga finally married in 1928. In total, Frank married 3 times and fathered 7 children and adopted Olga's daughter. Frank received a gold medal award from the Royal Institute of British Architects in 1941. On the 4th of April 1959, Frank was hospitalized with abdominal pains and had an operation on the 6th of April. He seemed to be recovering well, but died suddenly on the 9th of April at the age of 91. Although Frank was originally buried at the Unity Chapel cemetery, his body was exhumed and moved to Arizona. This will be covered in a later video. The second cemetery is the Immanuelevangelicallutheran in Farmington. Meinhardt Raabe. Meinhardt Frank Raabe was born on the 2nd of September 1915 in Watertown and was an actor. He graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 1937 with a bachelor's degree in accounting. He applied for many jobs but was rejected, which was most likely due to him being a midget. Meinhardt eventually got a job as a salesman, but took a leave of absence to audition for the role in The Wizard of Oz. Measuring only 107 centimetres, 42 inches in height, he played the role of the coroner in The Wizard of Oz in 1939. Meinhardt, however, was uncredited in the role, which lasted only 13 seconds, where he speaks, "As coroner, I must have her. I thoroughly examined her, and she's not only merely dead, she's really most sincerely dead." Meinhardt claimed to have come up with the idea to sell canned sausages. As the idea was being commercialized, the army realized that this product would aid in feeding American soldiers in the field, and production was diverted to military consumption. As the US entered World War II. During the war, Meinhardt joined the Civil Air Patrol, serving as a pilot and flying fire and lake patrol missions, as well as serving as a ground instructor. In 1970, he earned a master's degree in business administration from Drexel University. He married a cigarette girl who was the same height as himself, Margaret Marie Hartline. They were married for 50 years until her death in a car accident in 1997, in which he was also injured. He went on to appear in shows and attend Wizard of Oz and Munchkin conventions. On the 21st of November 2007, he appeared with 6 other surviving Munchkin actors at the unveiling of a Hollywood star for the Wizard of Oz Munchkins on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He died at a medical center in Orange Park, Florida on the 9th of April 2010 at the age of 94 after going into a cardiac arrest. The third cemetery is the Wildwood Cemetery in Sheboygan, where we visit the graves of husband and wife Archie Bleyer and Janet Ertel. Archie Bleyer. Archibald Martin Bleyer was born on the 12th of June 1909 in the Corona section of New York City borough of Queens. Archie started his music career by taking up the piano at the age of 7. In the 1930s, he wrote and recorded his own novelty songs, Mouthful of Jam, Business in F and Business in Q. In 1934, he began to lead his own band and released music under the Bleyer Orchestra on various record labels, including Vocalion, Arc and Oriole, to name a few. One of the vocalists who worked with him was Johnny Mercer, who later became known as a songwriter and co-founder of Capitol Records. In 1952, Archie founded Cadence Records, his first artist being Julius LaRosa. He also signed the Chordettes, which featured his future wife, Janet Ertel, who he married in 1954. Other signings for the label included Andy Williams, Johnny Tillotson, and the Everly Brothers. Not happy with the way music was changing, he decided to sell Cadence Records to Andy Williams, who brought the label under his Barnaby Records company. He was also a Freemason, a member of St. Cecile Lodge, number 568 in New York City. Archie and his wife Janet eventually moved to her hometown, Sheboygan, Wisconsin, where he died on the 20th of March 1989 due to Parkinson's disease. Now let's turn to his wife. Janet Ertel. Janet was born Janet Bushman on the 21st of September 1913 and was a singer in the female quartet, the Chordettes. They made several recordings on the Columbia record label before changing to Cadence Records, owned by her future husband, Archie Bleyer, discussed earlier. The Chordettes had 3 top 40 hits in the UK charts between 1954 and 1958. These were Mr. Sandman, reaching number 11, Born to Be With You, reaching number 8, and Lollipop, which got to number 6. The group disbanded in 1963 and in 2001 were inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame in America. Janet and Archie had a daughter, Jackie, who in 1963 married Phil Everly of the Everly Brothers. Unfortunately, they divorced in 1970. Janet died on the 22nd of November 1988 from cancer. The fourth cemetery in Wisconsin is the Viroqua Cemetery. Here we find Nancy Parsons. Nancy was born Nancy Ann Parsons on the 17th of January 1942 in Lake Minnetonka, St. Paul, Minnesota, and had two sisters. After her parents split, her father remarried and moved to Pasadena, California, taking the three girls with him. It was here that Nancy got the acting bug and landed a full scholarship at the Pasadena Playhouse from 1960 to 1962. In her personal life, she married Alan Hipwell and had two daughters herself, Elizabeth born on the 3rd of November 1964 and Margaret on the 7th of October 1969. Nancy then divorced her husband in 1972 and returned to acting while completing a theatre degree at UCLA. Her film debut was in I Never Promised You a Rose Garden in 1977, but is best known for her role in Porky's in 1982 and its sequels as Beulah Ballbricker. She also appeared in Motel Hell in 1980, the 1985 Motley Crue video Smoking in the Boys' Room, and Steel Magnolias in 1989, as well as many other films. Nancy also appeared in many TV shows, including Remington Steele, Beretta, Charlie's Angels, The Rockford File, Star Trek The Next Generation, and Days of Our Lives. Nancy had two further children, Cassidy Coulson and Jasper Coulson. One of her favourite words was chutzpah. Sadly, she died on the 5th of January 2001 in La Crosse, Wisconsin, from diabetes and congestive heart failure at the age of 58. Now on to the fifth and final cemetery in Wisconsin, which is the Prairiehome Cemetery in Waukesha. Here we have three graves, the Aitken brothers and the famous lespaul. Harry E. Aitken. Harry was born on the 4th of October 1878 on a family farm near Gouker's Corner, Wisconsin. He became a film studio executive. Together with his brother Roy, they operated Keystone Studios. Later, Harry became a partner in the Mutual Film Company. The two brothers helped to pioneer the distribution of movies during the silent era in the United States. To expand the business, they moved to California in 1908 and in 1912 founded the Mutual Distribution Company. 3 years later, they were distributing movies to 45 US cities and towns. Harry worked with D.W. Griffiths and Charlie Chaplin. He was involved with the Majestic and Reliant Studios. With D.W. Griffiths, he co-founded the Epoch Producing Company, under which the movie The Birth of a Nation was produced in 1915. The profits from the film were used to set up the Triangle Film Corporation, also in 1915. It was called this as it was built on a triangular plot of land in Culver City. This produced the infamous movie Intolerance in 1916, but failed soon after due to overambition and was sold to the Goldwyn Company. He returned to his hometown of Waukesha, Wisconsin around 1918 and died there on the 1st of August 1956 at the age of 78. Now moving on to his brother, Roy E. Aitken. Roy, the younger brother of Harry, was born on the 13th of June 1882, who was a motion picture executive. He was one of the first to produce movies independent of Thomas Edison and Motion Picture Patents Company. As already mentioned, he was involved in the setting up of several film corporations and companies. Little is known about Roy after this time. Roy died on the 28th of October 1976 at the age of 93. The final grave is lespaul. Les was born Lester William Polsfuss on the 9th of June 1915 in Waukesha, Wisconsin. He was a jazz, country and blues guitarist, songwriter and inventor. He was known as the Wizard of Waukesha. In 1937 he married Virginia Webb and had 2 children, Les Paul Jr. and Jean. He was a pioneer of the solid body electric guitar, and in 1940 his prototype, the Log, was created at the Epiphone Guitar Factory and inspired the famous Gibson Les Paul. When he initially approached the Gibson Guitar Company in 1941, they were not interested in his invention until Fender started creating their own electric guitars. Les's guitar finally went on sale in 1952. Les suggested many improvements to the guitar and was issued a US patent number 3018680 for a pickup. He also created the first headless guitar. Before adopting the stage name Les Paul, he performed under the names Red Hot Red and Rhubarb Red, which was his hillbilly alter ego. Les was also known for inventing the neck-worn harmonica holder. The same design is used to this day. His guitar style was influenced by the Django Reinhardt, who he greatly admired. While practicing his guitar playing in 1941, Les almost electrocuted himself. It took 2 years for him to recover. In 1943, he was drafted into the US Army, where he served in the Armed Forces Radio Network, backing such artists as Bing Crosby and the Andrews Sisters, and performing on his own right. In the summer of 1945, Les met country and western singer Iris Colleen Summers. They began working together on Les's radio show as Rhubarb Red and the Ozark Apple Knockers with Mary Lou. Les suggested she change her stage name to Mary Ford. This was the start of a great partnership, releasing many songs together. In January 1948, Les shattered his right arm and elbow among multiple injuries in a near-fatal automobile accident on an icy Route 66 west of Davenport, Oklahoma. Mary Ford was driving the Buick convertible, which plunged off the side of the railroad overpass and dropped 20 feet into a ravine. It took him 18 months to recover from that injury. In 1949, Les divorced Virginia Webb and married Mary Ford in Milwaukee. Also in 1949, Bing Crosby gave Les one of the first Ampex Model 200A reel-to-reel tape recorders. This started Les experimenting with sound-on-sound, or as it's known better today, multitracking. This also led to the first 8-track recorders. Les created many different sound effects, still used by guitarists to this day. Les created his own home recording studio, and artists flocked there to work with him. Les and Mary had 48 US hit singles, including How High the Moon, Bye Bye Blues, Song in Blue, and Via Con Dios. However, they only had one UK chart single, Via Con Dios, in 1953, reaching number 7 on the charts on Capitol Records. On the 30th of November 1954, they had their first child, a girl who was born prematurely but sadly died after 4 days. In 1958, they adopted a girl, Colleen, and in 1959 they had a son called Robert. In 1964, Les and Mary divorced as she was tired of the constant touring. In 1965, Les went into semi-retirement but still worked intermittently. He recorded 2 new albums, one in 1976 called Chester and Lester, and one in 1978, Guitar Monsters, both on the RCA Victor label. In 1988, Les was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and in 2005 was also inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame for his development of solid-body electric guitars. No one else has achieved this. Other awards he achieved are inducted into the Big Band and Jazz Hall of Fame in 1990, the New Jersey Inventors Hall of Fame in 1996, Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2005, the New Jersey Hall of Fame in 2010, and many, many more. In 2006, at the age of 90, he won 2 Grammy Awards at the 48th Annual Grammy Awards. On the 12th of August 2009, Les died of pneumonia at White Plains Hospital in New York at the age of 94. After his death, lots of famous guitarists paid tribute to Les, including Slash, saying he was vibrant and full of positive energy. Richie Sambora called him a revolutionary in the music business, and The Edge said his legacy as a musician and inventor will live on, and his influence on rock and roll will never be forgotten. As mentioned at the start of the video, I was amazed by the replacement grave for Les. Here is some footage I took back in 2017. Here are the grave locations and cemetery maps that were available. If you have enjoyed watching this video, then please like, subscribe and hit the bell. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.